Welcome to episode 9 of Conscious Caregiver Conversations, where today we are going to discuss the spiritual connection and why this is such an integral piece of being a conscious caregiver. So as per usual, we will just wait for Samantha to log in. There she is. There she is.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good evening. I love that. It still fascinates me that we have this technology to be able to speak across the globe.
I know. Pretty wonderful.
It is. Did you want to dive right in, Jenna, or were you chatting about anything before I hopped on?
No, just kind of introduced what we're going to be talking about today and how it's an integral component of the conscious caregiver journey. And I figured I would kind of let you take the lead this time because I know it's something that's been calling to you, and we'll just see where it takes us, and I'll jump in with some things. But yeah, would love to hear your thoughts, and certainly we know that a connection with the divine, with something bigger than ourselves, if you will, is a really important piece to this, and would just love to have you lead the discussion, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Okay, yes, because I definitely would like, you tend to explain things sometimes a little bit better than I do, Jenna. I'm all like up in here and trying to explain, especially a lot of these woo-woo spiritual topics. It can be a bit hard to actually find, the human language to be able to express what we mean. But I think this is really important. It sort of came about in a couple of conversations this week, so it's always at work, so it's always beautiful to speak on something that is relevant, that's happening in the workplace. And I thought it would be really good to touch on what Jenna and I mean in regards to the divine, or in regards to being in touch with our spirituality, and also what it means when we talk about our higher self as well, and the connection to our soul, or whatever you might believe in, and our higher self, because that's also important too. And it's important to recognise both of these areas and not think that they're exclusive to only certain people or only certain groups of people, or whatever that might be. So to start with, in regards to when we talk about the divine, source, spirit, creator, God, there is so many names. Basically, for the context of what we're talking about in conscious caregiving, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jenna, but in the context of what we're expressing here in conscious caregiving and how to become a conscious caregiver and how impactful that can be, when we talk about, and I'll just use the divine as the word for today, but you can interchange your own belief of whatever higher being or spirit or term you would like to use in that regard. So becoming a conscious caregiver is not just for certain people who practice certain religions or people who don't practice any religions. It's actually got nothing to do with religion itself. And that's what I wanted to make really clear, because we do talk about, yes, aka the woo-woo subjects and spirituality, and that there's something greater than ourselves. And I actually find that concept very reassuring, to be honest, because most of us get into healthcare to have a massive change, to have a massive impact. And sometimes when we can feel really overwhelmed with all of that and that we are just one person, for me, it's taken a weight off my shoulders, really trusting and really sort of releasing myself into the truth that I believe there's something bigger than our human selves. There's something bigger than even the health system, than our political system, that our managers. It just sort of, there's something that is a greater force that's happening. And so what I wanted to make super clear was that you can name or call that force whatever you please, for the sake of aligning with your beliefs and enabling you to really take on board a lot of the conscious caregiver aspects that we talk about. Am I going okay here, Jenna? Does that sound...
Absolutely, yes. And I wanted to point out that I really like the way you spoke about spirituality and it existing outside of the context of religion. Now, if you are religious, if you consider yourself religious or you practice a particular religion, and that is very resonant for you, that is fine. We are not saying that there's anything wrong with religion. In my experience, there are aspects of religion, particularly the religion that I used to very closely align with, as far as Christianity, where there is a lot of right and wrong. And what I love about spirituality is that there is no right or wrong. It just is. And one of the reasons that I think that's so important is because some of us will find ourselves in this space of hearing that a certain way of being or doing or worshiping or whatever you want to call it is wrong, or perhaps right too, could go the other way as well, but I often find it more with the wrong aspect of it. And it doesn't sit well with you. When you tune into your own knowingness and you tune into what feels right in your body, you're being told or preached to that a certain way of doing something is wrong, but in your body, you feel that constriction of, no, that actually doesn't sound right to me. But because you're in this context of religion and you're feeling like you have to follow the rules, if you will, you try, and I know for me in many ways, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but in many ways, I would try to convince myself that no, my religion was right and the way I was feeling in my body was wrong. And through my journey of spirituality, I have come to learn that we possess divine wisdom. And that's something that through societal structures has really been taken away from us. We have been programmed to believe that, in fact, we cannot trust how we feel in our bodies. We cannot trust what is resonant for us versus what is not resonant for us. And it's simply not the truth. We have to trust what is resonant for us. We have to trust what feels good in our bodies and what doesn't. And that is where I personally have, much like Samantha, found a lot of solace in this idea and this concept of spirituality, and that it can really be whatever is most resonant for you. There are so many different divine beings, be it Source Creator God, our higher selves, our core healing teams, the ascended masters, the archangels, your wealthy and wise and healed ancestors, as Echo talks about a lot. I mean, there are so many different beings and energies that you can work with. One of the things that I often found from, at one time aligning with religion too, is that practices like that were considered, idolatry, taking false idols, things like that. just not resonant for me, because the truth is, when you realize what spirituality and divinity and this thing that's bigger than us really is all about, you realize that we're not separate at all, but we're really all one. And so, what I do for myself, I do for you. What you do for yourself, you do for me. And it's just this beautiful concept and this beautiful knowingness of the one love that we truly are. And that is also why prayer and healing and all of these ways of bringing in love and everything else is so powerful, is because we are all connected. And we see that just in nature. If you've ever seen those pictures sometimes that are shared on social media, or on different news outlets, whatever, of the leaf or the tree, and what part of the human body that looks like. I mean, there's scientific evidence that we are all created from the same creator, from the same one love energy. So it's just really beautiful when you start to dive into that. And I personally also found it to be very freeing, like Samantha said, because you just realize that it's not about rules and it's not about right and wrong. It's just about finding that connection. And there's ways that this can show up, which I will certainly share. I've had several experiences recently of my own, but wanted to kind of kick it over to you, Sam, and see if there's anything else that you wanted to expand upon with regard to this whole idea of oneness, and just how beautiful that is from a spiritual standpoint, and also knowing that we are divinity in form. We truly are, and we possess the divine wisdom. And that is why listening to ourselves is so important, because frankly, if you're not listening to yourself and you're ignoring the signs that you're receiving from your body, you're ignoring divine wisdom.
Pretty much, yes. And that's two beautiful segues there, Jenna, because first of all, the oneness and the connectedness, and secondly, knowing that we are connected to our higher selves, our soul. We are divinity in form. So I'll just touch on both, and then, because I know that you can expand with more examples than that. But as always, we're trying to bring this into the context of our jobs, of our professions, healthcare, because that's what we're here to do. It's not just airy-fairy subjects that have no relevance to our daily job. So in regards to, I believe, and again, it's just my belief, take it as you will, but the more connected that we are to our heart center, our soul, our divine, our oneness, our spirituality, all of those things, I believe the more connected we can be with our patients, and the more connected we can be in times where it might be very difficult to care for patients for whatever reason, whether that's staffing, whether that's other stresses in the department, whether that's because the patient has serious mental health issues, has a history that is not aligned with what we would believe in, or practices certain things that we wouldn't do. And so I truly believe that the way I've been able to become more, less judgmental, more empathetic in my workplace, and I guess this is to patients and colleagues as well, because we work with people that we might not usually socialise with. And in order to really blossom, and it's definitely happened with me, like I spoke about in last week's live, really blossoming with very professional, trustworthy relationships with my colleagues, it has been the more connected I am with myself and then to my spirituality. And it's not that I, project my own beliefs or anything on other people. It is this inner sense of confidence that comes from, and this knowing, this inner knowing, which then leads to the second part of being connected to your higher self, knowing that you are, divinely, we have divine wisdom inside of us. Like, it's not something that's external. We have the ability, if we slow down, which is one of the biggest things that we teach about in conscious caregiving, slowing down, becoming intentional, really taking that time to reflect on things that we need to heal, things that we need to work through. You really have that almost, again, that inner knowing, that confidence, that love and the energetic form of love, the love frequency, is the highest healing frequency that we have. And actually, there's no limit on how much of that we can access for ourselves, and then for our colleagues, for our patients, for our health system, for our community, in the wider perspective. And I feel like we can sometimes berate ourselves so much if we're not being the kind of caregiver we want to be, or we're frustrated with different systems that are in place holding us back from giving the care we want. And honestly, tapping into my inner knowing, my inner wisdom, different spiritual practices that I also use as stress relieving tools, as mindset work tools, as health and healing tools as well, has all directly influenced how well and how compassionately I can care for my patients. And as well, leaving that compassion and that sense of connection at work as well, and not bringing it into my home life. It's so intricately connected, and I'm probably not doing it justice by describing in a short, conversation that we do, Jenna, about how deep this is. But these conversations will, progress and get deeper and deeper as we sort of share all the, I guess, the foundational elements. And, the big foundational element is really becoming more connected to your spirituality and what you believe and what you know and you think is true, and really honing into that, and then that being able to resonate out in the care that you can give to yourself and then to others.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Really trusting that connection, and recognizing how it comes through you and how it speaks to you is a big piece of that. When we talk about that inner wisdom, one of the words that kept popping in for me that I think is very relatable for people, and certainly we talk about it a lot in nursing, in healthcare, and that is the idea of intuition. And your intuition truly is the divine wisdom that you possess. And it's really interesting because I've talked, a couple times about the anxiety that I've been working through and that I've had for a really long time, and the healing work that I've been doing in order to help to understand and move through and hopefully heal some of that anxiety. But in that, I've also begun to recognize that anxiety, even though I still don't enjoy it and it still doesn't feel good and I still prefer not to have it at this point, I've really begun to recognize it as a divine gift. Because when I wake up, particularly in the morning, when I wake up with anxiety, which, it's one of those things where I've been asleep, right? So I'm waking up and I'm having the feelings of this frenetic nervous system and, all of these different things. And there no rhyme or reason, right? Like, there wasn't something in my life to cause me to feel this way. I'm just waking up naturally with it. And I'm beginning to identify, as I slow down and get intentional and work with my mentors and all the things, beginning to identify that my anxiety is a signaling device. And so Monday morning, after actually doing fairly well with my anxiety and not having a ton of it, I woke up with some anxiety. It went away fairly quickly, but then I get to work and we have issues with our parking structure. And it's a very long story. Long story short, the parking structure is okay and there's no cause for alarm. But that being said, it became this thing, right? Because we had to address it, we had to evacuate the parking structure. There were all these different things that came up, and I had plans of other things that I needed to get done, and well, that just went by the wayside, right? So there's day number one, waking up with anxiety. Oh, there's this whole big issue with the parking structure, okay? Then yesterday, also wake up with some anxiety, and I have other issues come up, and it was just one of those things where we had some issues with a patient that had, some advanced heart failure, and there were just some other things, and it was like flying at me, and I was just getting really kind of overwhelmed and agitated because I had all of these things flying to me at once, and didn't really feel like I showed up as my best self. But again, here we go, like we have this whole, concern arise that doesn't need education, yada, yada, yada. And, so anxiety, signaling device. Hey, Jenna, you're going to have something come up today. So unfortunately, also woke up with a lot of anxiety this morning. And it was anxiety that did not subside. Usually after I'm starting to get ready for work and things like that, it does subside. It did not subside. And then on top of that, my cat, which this never happens, my cat is
Stop.
at the foot of my bed. So
Stop, Casey, please.
My cat is never
Sorry.
like, I never wake up with my cat asleep at the foot of my bed, like ever. That she just doesn't do that. And then if I like go get her medicine, like because she has medicine she takes every day, she'll run away. And like, or once I medicate her, she'll run away. This cat was glued to the foot of my bed. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I thought something was wrong with the cat. So here I am dealing with all of this anxiety. My cat is on the foot of my bed, totally abnormal behavior. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, I get into work, and here I'm thinking, like, oh my God, something crazy is going to happen at work. I get into work, my dad ends up texting me in the morning, and long story short, he informs me that one of my childhood best friends passed away. So the reason that I share this with you is because when you begin to recognize that the feelings that you have in your body are not just random, they're not just, now certainly some of the healing that I've had to do contributes to my anxiety, but also recognizing that these are divine messages. This is divine information, and this is how it's being delivered to me. That doesn't mean that it's going to be delivered to Samantha as anxiety or to anyone watching this video as anxiety, but for me, it's delivered in this context of anxiety, which feels like nervousness and, a frantic nervous system and all these things. And I'm now learning that when that shows up in my field, there's something I need to prepare myself for. So, the other thing that I liken this to is, how many people have we worked with? I had this one nurse that I worked with when I was living in South Carolina, and she worked on the progressive care unit, and we would, quote unquote, fondly call her the angel of death, because she was often in charge, and as she was going around to round on all the patients to see how they were doing and what the plan of care was, and if there was anything that she needed to be aware of, she would be able to identify those patients on her unit that were going to code. Like, she would literally go by and be like, that patient's going to code tonight. And sure enough, the patient would code. Now, whether they survived or not was a different story, but sure enough, the patient would code. That is a perfect example that is tangible, that we have seen in nursing time and time again, where you have a patient that you receive messaging on. Like, you get this intuition, you get this download, that patient's going to code. That patient's going to have this problem. That patient's going to have that problem. I've had patients roll off to surgery because I was an open heart nurse for many years. I've had a patient roll off to surgery, and they're rolling off to surgery and they're crying, saying, I'm going to die. That's not an accident, y'all. That is divine messaging. This is what I'm talking about. This is that information that it's like, that didn't come from Jenna. That didn't come from whomever. That was a knowingness that honestly is so hard to language and so hard to understand in the context of healthcare, because sometimes you can't explain it. You just know, right? You have this gut feeling, and sure enough, we've all been in those situations where we followed our intuition versus not following our intuition. And I can't tell you how many times I haven't followed my intuition and I should have followed my intuition. So yeah, it's just, it really does. It shows up in the context of healthcare all the time.
And I'm not sure, Jenna, if you can, well, first of all, I want to say big condolences to your childhood friend who's passed. That's important to acknowledge here that you've mentioned that. I don't know if you can see on your screen, but I've had a beautiful comment come up that says, and I can't see the name, I apologise, but it's good to have a different perspective on what anxiety may be doing for us rather than simply dysregulating us. And that's really important too. And a lot of our emotions that are not feel-good emotions, because our intuition can come through as feel-good emotions too, so don't get me wrong, but because of a lot of societal programming and culture telling us that we shouldn't feel bad, and that intuition is a superpower, it saved me so many times throughout my life. It's so true. And acknowledging that intuition can come in the form, or divine guidance, divine wisdom can come through in forms that cannot always feel good. Mm-hmm. As in, the emotion that they bring forth cannot always feel good. I shouldn't say intuition is neither good nor bad. It's not, anything like that. But the emotion that comes through, like, I don't think anyone would say anxiety feels good. And so often we want to suppress it. We want to get rid of it. We just want to not feel that way. And we've got to give ourselves grace in our human experience. But what Jenna puts so well, and I've not often had anxiety, but I've had other feelings. And actually, since becoming a mother, anger has been a very clear indicator for me that I need to be doing something for myself or my children or my patients differently. And that's been very interesting, because anger, especially as a woman, as a nurse in a health field, as a mum, is not really acceptable, and it's not really spoken about. Mm-hmm. But I've come to understand that is such powerful guidance coming through, indicating something to me. Mm-hmm. And that is divine wisdom. So I think, and part of, again, what we talk about and what we share in conscious caregiving is really about becoming emotionally aware and having some intelligence about what our emotions are showing us. And if we can actually peel back the layers, which of course takes practice, it takes time, it takes support, and a lot of that we don't have in our actual workplaces, which is why the conscious caregiving is a commitment to yourself and your practice and your journey. But it really does allow you to see that these deeper meanings, this divine wisdom, this intelligence that's bigger than us is coming through. Mm-hmm. And yes, we can stuff up sometimes, and yes, we can not always foresee things, or yes, we can decide not to follow our intuition and then end up in a bigger hole sometimes. But we are human and we're learning, and it's about putting those support systems in place so that we're able to take this journey. And that's part of what Jenna and I are truly here to be able to do in these conversations. I've got another comment come through, Jenna. I'm sorry if you can see this, but I just want to speak it out loud for our listeners. So, and yes, giving ourselves grace, recognizing patience in patience balance. Definitely. And the first time I heard grace, actually in a non-religious sense, because I had been brought up where grace was something sort of associated with a religion, but realizing that I can actually give myself grace, bucket loads of it. I can choose to give myself grace every damn day, every minute of every day if I need to. And
Absolutely.
that, again, is another freeing tool, and I'm sure you can attest to that, Jenna. It's so freeing.
Oh, yes. I was running grace frequency through my central nervous system today on my way to work, and as well as love frequency and divinity frequency. So, yeah. And I just, if there's one take home that I think has really come through in this whole conversation about the spiritual connection, I really think that it is that absence of separation. I really, really feel like the overarching theme that has come through, separate from our individual beliefs, which are exactly that and exactly as they should be, but is this really it's this idea of there really isn't any separation. So when you are feeling things in your body, whether it be physical symptoms, if you will, or emotional symptoms, really, I'm learning even on a deeper level this year to really sit with that and really ask yourself without judgment and without trying to analyze it, what is your body trying to tell you? Maybe it is a healing that needs to occur, but maybe, as in my case with the anxiety, it's just, my body saying, hey, just want to give you a heads up, something's going to happen, and I don't have the foresight, at least at this point in my journey, to know what that is. But just learning to recognize that if there's a symptom that I'm experiencing in my body, whether it's anxiety or pain or some type of, discomfort that is not typical, is not what I know to be healthy, quote unquote, or whatever it might be. It's so true what Samantha said about the fact that our approach in conventional medicine, honestly, is very suppressive. But we don't want to suppress. I mean, the truth is, we really don't want to suppress. If we have symptoms coming up within us, it's our body talking to us, and that is divine wisdom. It really is the understanding that we are not separate, that divinity lives within us, and that it's speaking to us through our emotions, through what we feel in our body, and it's trying to deliver a message. Sometimes that message is just that we need to slow the hell down and take better care of ourselves, and sometimes that message is something else. And so getting into a practice of noticing, that's what my one mentor, my homeopath, talks about a lot, is just noticing. I'm noticing that I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm noticing that these are the thoughts that are coming in around the anxiety. I'm noticing that I'm having pain in my back right now. I'm noticing that these are the thoughts that are coming in, or this is what's going on in my life right now. And, making those connections and really starting to put together, this is what my body is telling me through these symptoms. This is what I'm thinking, feeling. These are the events that are going on in my life right now, and making those associations. Because, for example, I can tell you that when I start to have neck and head tension, it's usually because I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I'm saying yes way too much, I'm putting way too much on my plate, and now I'm feeling spread too thin. And so through learning how to say no and not get overwhelmed and all of the things, I'm being able to start mitigating that tension. So that's just a very quick example. Obviously, just as with everything else, it tends to go a little deeper than that. But, when I start to place myself in a state of stress and feeling like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, that's when the tension comes in, and that's when the migraines start. So knowing that, I can do it differently. And that is the divine wisdom that we all have access to.
And knowing that, that's a very good example, Jenna, because I get that as well. Neck and headaches. Sometimes it almost goes into a migraine as well, really. And that's a very good example, because I'm sure it's very common, unfortunately, but fortunately as well. And it's also a big thing that just came in was that knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. As in, of course, we're in the healthcare field. We know that there physiologically at times, yes, that could very much be something that needs rectifying. But even then, again, taking away that right and wrong, and you are as you're meant to be right now. And to me, that intertwines with a lot of grace as well. I am learning, I am right where I need to be now. Even if I've stuffed up, even if I'm experiencing, unpleasant sensations in my body or, in my emotions or in my mind, I am as I'm meant to be right now. And that's exactly what I'm meant to be. Doesn't mean I'm going to be like that in the next moment. Doesn't mean like I've been like that in the past. But as I am now, I'm bringing back to the present. And that's a whole other, like, as you mentioned, boundaries. And I think being in the present moment, I think they're two whole conversations that we could do separately here, Jenna. But yes, I think we've summed up in a very brief, foundational way when we talk about divine guidance, when we talk about source creator God, spirit, Mother Gaia, Buddha, whoever you might resonate with and believe to be true. For the sake of what we're talking about in conscious caregiving, the higher power, the higher essence, divine essence, you can use what terminology resonates with you. This is not an exclusive way to journey into caregiving just for certain religions and certain beliefs. It's not at all. It's actually the opposite, isn't it, Jenna? It's actually the opposite, where you can come in with any background, with any healthcare background, with any cultural background, and be able to use the tools and the concepts that we share in here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say, just with what I experienced today, I have a very different view of when those we love leave the earth plane. And in so many ways, while I'm working through a lot of grief, because this is a person that I've literally known my entire life and grew up with and was very, very close with for a very long time, there's a presence that those we love can have with us in a way that they can't have when they're here in a physical body, that gives me a lot of peace. And that is truly something that came from just looking at spirituality in a whole new way, and embracing different perspectives, and just learning about it outside the context of any one specific way of being. It has also allowed me to have a lot of peace at work when it comes to our patients and some of the outcomes that happen. And that's something that I think we'll definitely dive into at some point with regard to, the whole journey of the soul and soul contracts and things like that, because I think that that's super important. And in that and through that, it allows you to cut yourself some slack, because I think when we lose patients, obviously it's very, very devastating, and that doesn't change. But when you begin to see the human journey from different perspectives, you can grieve, but then allow some release in a way that I think is hard for a lot of people, particularly in the context of life and death. And so, that's definitely a conversation for another time. We've already
and also
but
we have as usual, but just with that as well, Jenna, it's like we again quite often speak about. It's what we want to do is share these tools and concepts and mindsets and different ways of approaching our healthcare professions to enable us to have a long career in healthcare. And I think just touching on there, when we have a poor outcome, for a patient, and we still want to care because we're human, and it's we don't want to suppress that, because it's hard to see what a patient's gone through, what families go through, but this is one of the ways that we can maintain a long career in healthcare and not become burnt out and not become cynical like the other way, and suppressing everything and just being like, oh yeah, that happened today, like either, because neither of those ways are healthy, and neither of those ways will be the best that we can show up for our patients, which is what we're here for as well. So I just wanted to touch on that. Sorry, Jenna. I just feel like that's a really important point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And that's really what this is all about, is sustainability, because in healthcare, it's inevitable that we're going to experience loss. And it's appropriate for there to be a period of grieving and different feelings that we navigate through that. But at some point, we have to be able to release that. And it's one of the beautiful aspects of this journey. And just being able to view some things from a perspective that perhaps you've not considered before, or maybe even ever heard before, that will allow you to move forward in a way that I think is often hard for a lot of people, because we don't go into healthcare because we don't care. It's exactly the opposite. We go into healthcare because we do care. And when we're not able to process through things in a healthy way, I think that's where a lot of the jadedness comes in also, where you have those caregivers who have experienced so much loss and they don't know what to do with it. And so the wall goes up and it's really this false sense of protection, right? To put this wall up, it's a false sense of protection, but it's the only way we know how to deal with all of the pain that we've had to walk through as healthcare providers who are going to lose patients. So yeah, there's truly so much more that can be said about that. But again, this conscious caregiver way really goes back to sustainability, resiliency, true resiliency, not just I've been through all this crap but I'm still showing up, but like literal true resiliency where you're healing through it all so that you can truly authentically show up, not just show up because you got to put dinner on the table.
Exactly. And that's why, just to our audience as well, Jenna and I plan on being able to present at universities where, and not just in nursing, for nursing students, but for a wide range of healthcare professionals, because I, for one, was never taught any of these skills and concepts in healthcare. It's something that I've learnt through my own decision to invest in life coaching and to take this road, and I've just kind of seen the effects in my profession because of all this work that I'm doing as well. So I think that is beautiful there, that we can actually come into a place where we're at the very beginning of our careers, and be able to give these skills and concepts and mindsets and ways of approaching our healthcare to people at the very beginning as well. So just putting it out there, Jenna.
Absolutely. Put it out into the universe. I'm all about it. I love it. Well, my friend, holy cow, we've chatted for 45 minutes, but it's been absolutely beautiful. It has not felt like that. I actually do have another meeting that I have to jump on at 7, and I know you have a day to get started with your kiddos. So I guess we leave it there, because honestly, like, we could go on. We could truly go
We could, on. And that's why we like trying to make these as short as possible so that you can jump on. And also, again, I'm just on a roll now. Also be able to share, you know, in morning study sessions, or if you have like study hours, regular teaching hours or whatever on your ward or on your department, chat to Jenna or myself, and you can actually use part of what we're sharing and what we're focusing on. And that's why we're trying to make each kind of segment about one or two topics at the most, because each of everything we talk about is so deep and has so many layers and so many examples that we could share. So yes, if you do want to share any of this in your workplace or department, please just flick Jenna or myself a message as well, and we can get that sorted.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my friend, it was so lovely to chat with you, and thank you so much to our friend Ileana who got on today. So I'm so glad
yes,
that you joined
I see that.
live.
Thank you for a great conversation. Oh, thank you for jumping on.
Yes, thank you for joining us and for contributing to the discussion. We certainly hope to see you in future discussions. And if you have anything that you would ever like us to talk about, please feel free to jump into either one of our inboxes and let us know. And please share. Please share with
more people
in your
could
life.
benefit from this.
Yes.
She's just said, yeah,
yes,
definitely,
please share.
definitely.
Please